travelers, and welcome to another episode of the First the Stars podcast, third season. How my loyal listeners, thank you for your continued support. This is an amazing episode because Derek Ting boards the mothership to discuss Agent Recon. Now, come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hi, Mr. Ting. Thank you so much for coming to Traverse the Stars podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's totally my pleasure. I've enjoyed your films quite a bit, so it's a pleasure to have you on my show, sir.
Yeah, and I appreciate your support on Agent Revelations too. I think that's how we met. So I'm excited to
Indeed.
be here. Yeah, we can continue the conversation.
So, the first question I always start off is with inspiration. So, what inspired your love for film, and who were your earliest influences?
Oh man. Well, I just I I have to give credit to my dad because we would just watch a lot of movies growing up. I think I'll tell you a story. I remember as like early as 5 that my dad took me to Indiana Jones. And yeah, I mean, I just remember this big boulder coming at me and being scared, you know. Um, but certainly I've always loved movies and loved TV and growing up watched a ton as growing up in upstate New York. So and but I also had a love for acting and I fell into it in school. I did some plays, and I really didn't think of it as a profession until my last year of college, where I took an acting class. And so essentially it progressed from being an actor to realizing that filmmaking is really where it's at, where you have much more control
Hmm.
and the longevity of it and the ability to tell a story is just I think that's how people change. So that's how people connect with each other is tell stories. So
Hmm.
um, that's how it started. That's what inspired me.
So now, is it fair to say that you have a fully made trilogy of Agent films? Now, with the newest one being Agent Recon. So now that it's now a cohesive trilogy, what were some of the challenges in writing not just a complete story for one film, but you have to make it feel like a totally organic trilogy that built up to it?
Oh wow, yeah. As some people probably know that Agent Recon has Chuck Norris in it, and I got off the phone with Mrs. Norris, and but before that, she just mentioned she's like, "Oh, you have a trilogy now," and I didn't really, I think it still hasn't hit me. In fact, I think, and then one friend along the way when Agent Revelation came out, he's like, "Oh, you have your Empire Strikes Back." So, um, I think I always had a vision that I wanted to have a continuing story, like a serial, like George Lucas had talked about, serials and stuff like that. And I think, on the level of the feature film, you're striving for the best of what you can and giving the people more. But when I was writing this, I still was always like, I got to make the best movie each time.
Hmm.
Um, so in doing so, there's the story structure of 3 acts in the first one, Agent Intelligence, but there was always opportunity to expand that universe. I think that's why sci-fi is so exciting, and that's why I'm in it, is because there is, you can build this world and there's curiosity and more to tell versus if it were just in the real world, if some of these were just thrillers, then you're not really world building as much. And that's kind of how it went, was really just trying to make the best movie each time and complete, survive, release it, distribute it, market it. Um, and yeah, so now here we are with the trilogy. It's super exciting, but honestly, there was ambition, but there was only really though too is getting to the next level with
No, I was
each.
gonna, cause I was gonna say, I mean, no matter what level of experience you're at, we all dream. We all have big dreams. We all have massive dreams. And even when you made your first film, the Agent Intelligence film, you still had to have dreams of what if, right? So how
Mhm.
close did the third film, or where you ended up in the third film, come to what the what if was when you were dreaming about it after the first film?
Oh man. That's a good question because I was thinking about that today about like what I had originally written for this film and what has ended up on screen. And as a filmmaker, I mean, there were I'm going to put this out on YouTube, but I did some experiments with those virtual backgrounds.
Hmm.
The LEDs, the things that they did on The Mandalorian. Very exciting, but on the internet, they present it like, oh, like, the indie guy can do it. And you're
Yeah.
gonna say, that's totally like just not, I mean, like, it was a marketing point, but it's just really like where we are now with that, it's really only available to big studios. And even then, there isn't the workforce of that.
Hmm.
So what I'm painting the picture of to you is like there were things that I wanted to do on that level, but the feasibility of it was just so impossible that I ultimately, even after the test, after spending money to see if it was possible, I realized, well, no, I need to shoot everything practical. And so that really evolved the story. I mean, certainly there's things with Alistair's aircraft that I wanted to do, and I had written all this for Agent Recon. That parked to the side, and maybe I'd put that for a later episode, let's say. Um, and so yeah, I mean, so under those restrictions and parameters, I did though push the boundaries of what I could get, like in terms of locations, for example. Like I'm literally shooting where they shot Rebel Moon. You know, like I could see Zack Snyder's set like up on the hill. They wouldn't let me visit it because it's top secret, but you could see like I was like I'm literally sitting shooting next to his set, and so that's part of the dream too, is to be able to like um, I don't want to say decimate a forest because he probably decimated a forest for Zoa. And I'm a big believer in not disturbing, creating more climate change, but having that ability and that luxury to create that whole world.
But
Um,
I'm gonna say that
so
I'm gonna say that being said though, because I know you said you did use a lot of practical effects. Having watched
mhm.
the film, there's some special effects there that are beyond just practical. I mean, you have the mana effects, you have some super speed effects. That's got to be more than just practical effects you're using right there.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And those I think those look cool. And then there's a reveal in there too that like that's where I ultimately um, put a lot of my effects budget into
Hmm.
was at least showing this, you know, the answers to the movie, like why, and but then also set it up for later. Um, that was exciting. That whole like building and creating that was definitely like, um, there was some cutting edge stuff that we did with it, let's just say. On how to make it and make it look as best it
Hmm.
can on an indie budget. So
Yeah, what else I found kind of interesting is that this is also the third film that you directed, starred in, produced, and written. Is that correct? All four, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
was to go back, I had an interview on yesterday with Thomas Jane, and he was talking about how he directed for the first time some episodes of his new season of Trapo, and the difficulties of being both the director and the actor. Now, you've now done it three times over. So what are some of the difficulties that you found in both being the actor and the director at the same exact time?
I've actually done it four times,
Four
and
times.
that's how it happened. Was that I think well, originally I was making a movie that bridged Hong Kong and the West, and I really struggled to find a director that had that sensibility and understanding because I've lived in Asia for like more than 15, 20 years, and then I lived for a while in the States where I grew up. So that's how I got ended up getting into it. So uh, yeah, there's tons of difficulties is because you can't monitor the screen. So
Hmm.
for this one, because I've built up you have to build up a team. So over the course of the trilogy, I've built up my team. So the DP I worked with last time, he was originally my gaffer, and then I realized how talented he was in lighting and stuff like that, and also having a good sensibility of the camera, but and also I would say levels of producing and stuff like that. So um, he's one of my team, my stunt coordinator's team, and then I got a really awesome AD. You know, this is the first time on Agent Recon having like a let's say industry AD, somebody who does this primarily and has done many movies, and that really helped me. Um, so I think yeah, I mean it's I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. But obviously we see this is what the natural progression of actors.
Hmm.
And I think one of the advantages, though, and this is why when I worked with Mark Singer, for example, we got along really well because he knew that I was looking out for him, and he knew that I knew a lot of the tricks of the trade. And so, I gave him as much freedom to work as well, and we talked about the character. So a lot of the things, that he would, that how he would want to work, and every actor is different, of course. And so, but when I'm working with actors, I'm giving them the latitude
Hmm.
and helping them work the way they want to work rather than forcing them into my mode of directing and like, hey, you have to do it this way or say
Hmm.
it that way or screaming out lines. Like, I mean, there's the gamut of different directors, but I'm an actor's director, really. So, um, yeah.
So, as an actor, you exist in a certain level of certain type of headspace. As a director, you have to be in a different type of headspace, depending on and think about different things and looking at different things. Is the actor or the director help more by being on the other side of the camera or have experience on the other side of the camera?
Oh, they're so intertwined, and I think the lead, like that's, I don't recommend it for everybody either to be the lead. Um, but you control a lot of the aspects of how things happen, though, if you're the lead. And so, like in Agent Recon, ultimately telling the story, I'm, I am the quarterback, and I'm passing the ball all the time. That's the way I always think about it, is like that. Like, because I love football. I grew up with football. I wanted to be quarterback in my high school. Um, but anyway, I wouldn't, I never would have made it to the pros, but I always think of myself as like calling out the plays and then at the last minute calling an audible. I think that's the kind of idea that you're in the game, you're playing the game, you're trying to win the game for everybody. But then all the plays and you can change the plays at will. And you're seeing that all in front of you. So that's more of what it's like. So sorry, I mean, I know these two questions, they're kind of intertwined, is that and the way I'm answering is that one, I have a team,
Hmm.
right? So there's tons of difficulties. One of them obviously is you can't monitor every second, and you have to trust people. So, how do you answer that? Well, you answer that with having a great team,
Hmm.
watching out for you in different areas, and then you just verifying a lot of things. So it's quite a leadership position. And so like, and the same thing is like, when you're the actor and the director, you're calling plays, and you're you're passing the ball all the time. And so real time you are um, you know, moving the ball and trying to score every time. Right? And things get in your way. Rain gets in your
Yep.
way, bad weather, uh, someone's difficult on set or something, they get in your way and you have to do that. So like, I think the biggest skill is leadership, really,
Hmm.
and then communicating that leadership, communicating to people like exactly what's going on and knowing ahead of time all the plays of what we're going to do. That's those are the skills that the baton is passed back and forth between the actor and director when you're self-directing.
Hmm. And I mean, you've had some experience with some phenomenal actors. In the last film, you had Michael Dorn. Obviously, this film you had Chuck Norris and Mark Singer. Both have Chuck Norris obviously is a legend. Mark Singer has had a nice, wonderful career. Um, I guarantee every indie director is thinking to themselves, "How the fuck did you get Chuck Norris?"
Oh man, and there's plenty of people out there that hate me because I got a chance to.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then, and I'm sure I'm being judged about my movie, and they don't know the constraints I was under. And honestly, but I mean, I'm proud of my work. I delivered. There's tons of action, and Chuck, I had the opportunity to put all the action for Chuck I've harnessed the energy and focused it in there for Chuck. Um, but then that was my approach. I wouldn't have, everyone else is going to have their own approach, but I think personally, him coming back after 12 years, yeah, that I delivered. And how do I measure that? I think I measure that by them being happy about the film
Mm,
and having a good time on set. And watching his son and Chuck like work together, like, how awesome is that? And I was a
mm,
part of that. I facilitated that. I was, there as a supporter, how do you can't get moments like that back in time. And so why me? It came down to the script. It
mm,
came down to the script. They sent the script to him, and his wife Gina, Mrs. Norris, put the script in front of him, like a laptop while he's flying back from Hawaii, and said, "Let's just see if he's interested because he hasn't done a movie in a long time."
mm,
And he couldn't put the script down, and you know, and at the end he said, "We have to do this movie." And I'm sure because I have some, we've had some conversations. They had heard of Agent Intelligence. And then they had seen like Agent Intelligence, like clips of that, and then also Agent Revelation they had seen prior to watching Agent Recon, but signing on to Agent Recon. So it was already like kind of they had already been aware of it, and they put it
mm,
together like, oh, this is the third one. Um, and that didn't stop him, right? That didn't stop him from saying, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't. So, that's I think, I had a track record. I get things done. I'm easy to work with. I make the best out of whatever I have. I try my best, and I finish on time. And I try to give the audience as much as possible, as much as I can. I mean, there's
mm,
limits to that. I don't have the Marvel money. I don't have the Disney money, which they're willing they'll lose hundreds of millions of dollars on a film. I don't have that luxury, and I can't reshoot or anything like that. I have to make the best of what I have, and I'm there, and my time and my mind is there. And I think that's what's special about the Agent Saga series is that it's unique and it combines genres that I think people love. So, but okay, before I know this is a long answer, but also let me mention too, is that like, I was thinking about this because you mentioned Michael Dorn. I actually worked with three legit action
yes.
heroes, right? Like legit action, when I say that, it means that like these people can actually move and fight. Like they know martial arts. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, like how
And
cool is that,
it's kind of
right?
cool in the Agent Recon film. You basically do symbolically hand over from Dorn to Chuck Norris using the Alistair character. I'm not gonna go to I don't give spoilers away, but you do kind of make that a direct connection. And there's not many directors, writers, or actors that can say, "Yeah, I have a character that built off Michael Dorn and ended up with Chuck Norris." That's a hell of a transition you moved over to.
Okay, you know what? I haven't talked about this, like
Yeah,
why that is so. Um, Chuck really liked the Alistair character.
yeah,
And it wasn't really originally written that way for, the Dorn and Chuck are quite different.
right.
So, but Chuck I wanted to find another action hero and like as ultra famous as possible, and that's Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
So, and so when he read the script and he liked it, you know, he said, "I'm interested in the Alistair character." I was like, I had to really think about how are we going to make that work,
Mm,
right? And how believable could it be? Um, and I honestly, I think I delivered on that.
indeed.
You know,
Indeed.
but I want people to know that's the character that, you know, Chuck wanted to play, and I had to make a decision is like, would people really accept that, and can I make that feasible in this world? So, and I think I did. And you have to make these decisions quick. Chuck Norris says, "Hey, I'll do your movie." You got to be like, "Okay." He's like, "But I like Alistair." I was like, "How am I going to do that?" You know, and how am I going to do that as a writer very quickly? Because it's not like I'm going to say, "Oh, let me get back to you in a month," right?
Well, well, man,
So,
let's say the other thing though is I can't help but think is a little ballsy as well. So you're one of the actors and you have your action scenes, and Chuck Norris, one of the legends of action scenes, is in your film. How like do you take like you ask him like do you have any advice for what I'm doing? Do you just kind of like because everything you do measures up to being with Chuck Norris like in the same film. So I mean that's kind of a ballsy thing to try to be an action star with Chuck Norris.
right. Well, and I had no idea he was going to say yes. So it's not like I could, um, I don't even like I had no relationship with
Yeah.
him, zero, none. Um, I think the whole doing the whole movie was ballsy, if you ask me. I told my wife, I said, "Am I like, is this a good idea? I'm great. Like, I'm, this is kind of crazy. Like, is this a good idea?" And, um, you know, it, I think in when you're, because, I was writing the movie and I was packaging it together, and, honestly, I wasn't sure if we could get it off the ground. It's very hard to get any movie off the ground. I'm
Hmm.
sure any filmmaker would tell you that. So, but a number of I got a number of yeses, not just from Chuck Norris in terms of making the movie. And so, and it's still quite risky. And I knew that, I'm competing with giants whenever you put a movie out, especially on an indie level. And so I know I'd be judged on that.
Hmm.
Fine. And do I want to subject myself to this ridicule and all, same thing too, subject myself, like, I'm sure plenty of people are like, who does this guy think he is, and like, um he must really love his vanity project and he must have a big ego and all those things. And I just the way my perspective is, if you're given the opportunity, how can you walk away from that?
Hmm.
Right? I mean, I worked on it, and I have no idea whether I could make the next movie and whether I can even get enough to make it. Um, and so, but am I going to walk away from that? And how am I going to look at myself in the mirror if I didn't,
Hmm.
if I didn't try? How am I going to look at my family
Yeah.
and not respect myself? Right? So that was really in the position I was in, like, so because I'm no fool. I mean, I write sci-fi, so I don't think I'm reflective of my own self, of my own um my own being and what people will think of me, and if I
Hmm.
do this, what are the ramifications and the consequences? So I think about those things. And so, but ultimately that's why I made the decision, because making movies is a privilege, really. So, you know,
Now, once again, going back to Norris, he's been in the industry for 50 years. About when I mean, the film with Bruce Lee, for God's sakes, in the 70s. He's been around for a long time. As a director, with about four films under your belt, or about to get into your fourth film under your belt, how
five.
careful do you need to, five? How careful do you need to be in directing someone like Norris or Mark Singer, who are veteran actors, been in it for decades, and give them pointers, be like, hey, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, or can you do more of this or that? Is it difficult to approach them like that, or because you're all in the same goal, is it just they're easier, or everyone's just working together at that point?
I think the great thing about working with these legends is that they know what it takes. They know what it took for them to become a legend, and what kind of support you need as the director, as the lead actor. No, that they're going in eyes wide open that
Hmm.
this guy is doing it all, and in terms of playing those multiple roles, I'm not doing it all because I have a great team, but I'm really taking on a lot of responsibility. Um, So the encouragement that you receive from these guys is tremendous. It's amazing. Chuck was like, whatever you want. Do you want me to do it again? I'll do it again. And he said to me, oh, it was great from beginning to end. From the beginning, he said, you remind me of myself when I was, when I was around your age and making movies, because he's a filmmaker too. A lot of people don't know that. He made, his production company did Texas Walker Ranger, among other things. And at the end, you know, like when he was about to leave, he just came up to me and gave me a big hug, which is,
Mm,
it was just, it was amazing. It was, and that's the type of person he is. And they practiced. His son is awesome too. His son did, they choreographed, and I have a couple clips where they're literally practicing their action scene a number of times before they're going to go on screen. So, they're just so well prepared that I didn't really have to do much, but make sure that they feel comfortable, because Chuck is older, manage his energy,
mm,
make sure he's not sitting around doing nothing, which happens all the time on sets, bring him out only when um he's needed. And on his last sequence, I told the team, my stunt coordinator and everything, that he's not going back in the trailer after this. He's staying, so we're going to finish this out and then he's going to be done for the day, you
mm,
know. So knowing and I would do that for any actor, is not waste their time,
mm,
but specifically knowing, you know, that he's capable of action, but he's not going to be like doing like, crazy stuff over and over again. He's going to do it a couple times, and and we got to get it, and we got to make sure we're on point. We can't
mm,
mess that up. So, and Mark is great. He's a thespian. So he's giving me like tips. He wrote me a letter. He wrote me like this handwritten letter saying like what movies that he had admired as a lead, right?
mm.
The movies that he studied, which was so cool. So, and we have some clips from him saying that he had a great time, and we're friends. So, yeah, like I think that's, if I didn't meet them, obviously if I didn't meet them on their level, then they would be
Mm.
angry, they would be pissed. But I brought out whatever we could. We brought out the best cameras, the gigantic Ari Alexas, and literally shooting and filming in California, which is all set up for filming. So, you know, um, I gave them the best of what I could, and made sure that they feel like they're treated as should be.
Now, also as a writer, you have a lot of challenges because the twists in the film, you have to earn the twist without revealing the twist early on. When you gotta give like a nod to it, but if you give too big of a nod, the audience is gonna beat you to it. So, but at the same time, if you don't give any nod to it, it's gonna feel cheap when you get there. So, as a writer, how do you walk that line to make sure there's just enough to feel like it's been earned, but without giving it away so the audience beats you to it in the film?
Um, you know, well, I'd be curious. How did you feel? I mean, did you feel like you knew what everything was going to happen, or?
Like I said, I was surprised. I mean, I felt like you had the breadcrumbs there that once it happened, I was like, okay, I should have seen that. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, there wasn't a moment where I was like, because someone who actually does writing myself too. Usually it's a lot of movies that can kind of write the movie as I'm watching, be like, this is why they're doing this, this is why they're going here.
Hmm.
Your film, I felt like I once you revealed it, I was like, oh, okay, I should have seen how this built to it, but I didn't, and I think that's something that's highly difficult and respectable that you were able to pull that off.
Oh, thank you. Um, you have, I think, yeah, you make, by the way, I said statistics, you make hypotheses, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so, but you don't know the result. Like the audience is the experiment, right?
Mm,
Like, but yeah, certainly, like, I'm sure you are probably thinking, oh, that's a bit Dark Knight, because it certainly is a reference
Hmm.
where you have um, you know, the Joker had his love interest, and then he had the two choices and
Yeah.
where that would go. And certainly that's like I think that's one of the best, you know, hero choices and twists to it, and maybe you even expect it, but still it's heartbreaking at the same time. Um, but yeah, yeah, I mean, I think like even so what I'm saying is in the entire script, you're as you know, you're doing tons of setup and payoff.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly taking from the greats. This is how I did it. I'm just saying this is my method. This is
Hmm.
not, and it's not perfect. And I'm taking from the greats and I'm referencing them and I'm making it my own of what I liked and what didn't like. Uh, and you can only kind of, I don't want to say, I don't know if the wrong word is like cover your ass, but you can only kind of like do what you needed to do. You need to give the audience enough. But then, these days, like, because I work with execs, they want more. They want more explanation. They want you to know every single thing that's happening at that time, right? And that actually is a balance for me as the writer, is like, you know, um, I don't think that movie should be that way. So one of the things that has like a recurring theme that I've thought about in terms of what I want for cinema and the movies that I make is when you're watching Terminator for the first time, like you have no idea Arnold Schwarzenegger is a robot. You
Hmm.
don't, you know, when you see Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers meet for the first time, you have no idea what kind of mission they're going on. You think that's just a normal mission, and it's really set up as just a regular military mission. So I think that but nowadays they want you to like they just want to hit you over the head of like what's going
Hmm.
to happen and all those things. So yeah, so my answer is you're guessing, and we know and then I anticipate what you expect, and then I obviously, yeah, I try to change that, and that happens along the way in the editing suite as well too, like, so
Now, there's
uh,
also another a shot at the beginning of the film, and something it hit me. There's like a V from Vendetta, like inspired shot. It looks like at the beginning where he rises up after the shots. Was I correct that that was inspired by it, or am I reading into it? Like where where the villain? Am I
the
correct?
first the first the first scene,
Yeah,
the military scene, is it inspired by V from Vendetta?
that
um
one scene where after being shot and whatnot, rises like right in front of the camera like that. That's in my head. I just had like that perfect shot. That'd remind me of it.
I'll give a lot of credit to my DP in terms of setting the mood. Certainly, I would say if you want to know what I was thinking, it's very much The Matrix, the
Hmm.
opening scene of The Matrix, and the writing is that way too. Like it's one of the best opening scenes ever,
Hmm.
and it's written that way too, and that's what I was essentially going for was. But then of course it's not Trinity. You don't find it's Trinity. Everyone gets their butts kicked and everything. So, um, but if you look at it, lone person sitting in a chair, and instead of cops, there's military people, and they're just chattering. That's the opening of that. Also, Aliens,
Hmm.
the movie Aliens, that opening, I think from Jim Cameron. I read that one, and there's a little bit of that where you're just kind of seeing this place and you don't know what it is that you're going into. That's the same thing in the opening in Aliens. So that's sort of both of my references for that.
Now, having completed your trilogy, can we expect a fourth film on the way, or what do you think? Is it, I mean, or if you do your next film, would it be? the fourth film in the franchise, or are we going to a new one?
That's just hearing the words. Now that you've completed your trilogy, it's just, like, um, but I know that you're actually being serious, and I have to answer that question. Um, I wrote I wrote the one that's supposed to happen afterwards. And we've in Age of Recon, we you kind of get a sense if you have seen places where it's gonna go. That that part that part's actually already written. Um, so I would say that's a lot dependent on how the movie is performing, and currently it is performing well, I would say. Still unknown. Um, and I think though that I've established that I can do action movies with industry. I'm not saying with audiences. Well, I think the action people have written about me, and um, I at least did a solid job for the action people. Um, so the answer is yes. The answer is yes. I intend to definitely finish this next one, the finish the saga, or maybe it's like the mini series for V or something. There's like 4 episodes, something like that. If I had just had a mini series now, like next time you'd be like, do you intend to make a TV series out of this mini series? If you say that to me, we're gonna have beers for sure.
Well, I mean, James Bond had
So
24 films, so I'm just
yeah.
pointing that out.
Um, Yeah, no, that would be cool. I mean, that would be cool. There's just so, I mean, I thought about, like, can I do a spin-off with Mark and Nikki? I thought that would be cool. Like if they had their own little backstory, like that's a whole thing right there. I'd love to do those things. And I kind of generally know what I would do, but um I guess it's just this is what it takes in terms of, what I've had to do, especially nowadays when most people want IP that's been already been
Hmm.
done for like a long time. Creating your own IP is, uh, yeah, who does that anymore? You know what I mean?
So,
So,
so
uh,
what's the next for you? Is it going to be the fourth film, or are we exploring something else?
no, that's a great segue because,
Mhm.
like, my, obviously, if they came to me and said, "Hey, whatever you want for number four, like, and this is what you get, and then I'll do it." But I am creating a new franchise. So, and I'm like mostly done with it. It's an action one. I think people are gonna love it. Um, but that sounds very egotistical and vain of me. But it's just mainly because I'm such a fanboy of some of these movies that, like, I'm excited about it. It's gonna have like lots of action, and I think I'm not ready to announce it yet, but I'm gonna, like, like, this one was such a great learning experience, and every time I add more tools to my kit and everything. So, like, yeah, that's so the answer is I'm creating another franchise. That'll probably be my next movie. Um, but we'll see. I mean, I think we're just a month out after the movie was done, but that's kind of how I've been operating.
Well, since you've teased it, are we talking action sci-fi like the Agent franchise? Are we talking action like Die Hard, or what kind of action are we talking here?
Um, um, well, no, I mean, well, Die Hard's great, but it doesn't have, like, this will have a lot of fighting in it for sure. Like I'm gonna get a lot of, like, yeah, like a lot of, I would say, like, more of an Expendables,
Ooh, all right.
but with more action, like I would say, like, maybe combine like John Wick with Expendables, kind of that kind of sense that I mean, I think John Wick is a little bit too much on the action. Like, if you notice, like in Age of Recon, I don't drag the action. I love the action in John Wick. It's just that's their style. But sometimes, mine is more like, um I'm more of a chess match um type of,
Hmm.
action. I like that, and I don't think they should be drawn out for the sake of spectacle. So, but maybe in this one I will. I don't know. Maybe I'll just change it up. Maybe there'll just be so much blood. There's like no blood in this. Mine's wholesome, and Ancient Recon is wholesome but scary a little bit for younger people. You wouldn't be scared, like adults wouldn't be scared. But I wanted to, I wanted someone to be able to bring their kid, like their older kid, not their young 5-year-old, like I
Mm,
did with Indiana Jones. But I wanted someone I wanted, to be able to bring their kid and watch it along with them and be like, hey, remember, like, oh,
mm,
I watched Chuck Norris back in the day, and it's almost like even, like you're passing out, you're like, hey, introducing your kid to Chuck Norris,
mm.
and Mark Singer, and these are my heroes, and that's what I wanted, like, and
Well, I mean,
so that's the style of this one that
well, it's important to point out Chuck Norris was in the Expendables. So I'm just saying, if you're making one like the Expendables and you already know Chuck Norris, you already have one of the team.
yeah, yeah, well, and yeah, in a way, like, I mean, having my own Expendables like Chuck Norris and Mark Singer and Michael Dorner, that's pretty cool too. So I'm just kind of that. Um, so far I really haven't answered the question, but I've answered the question, which my wife, I drive her crazy. So I am so sorry if I don't directly answer all questions, but it's mainly because um you've asked good, hard questions.
I appreciate it. And like I said, when you're able to talk about it, you come back on the show, okay?
Oh, you got it. You got it for sure. I mean, I'm like, I love chatting with you, and I thank you for the support. Um, I feel like we're growing a community. I think that's really
Mm.
of like cool people, and that's like it's like a family for me. Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, oh yeah, like um, so I think that's ultimately what it's all about, for this. Like I think um like Star Trek, for example, and it's like having that university or a community identity that we can like, oh, I get you and you get me, like the language, we're speaking the same language.
Mm.
So yeah, I really appreciate. I think out of this experience of doing the Agent Saga is really what that's part of the one of the biggest benefits for me. So
Well, like I said, when you're ready to talk, please come back, sir. You've been an absolute honor to speak with.
my pleasure. Yeah,
Thank you
same
so
here.
much.
Same here.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Versus Stars podcast. Please help me battle the algorithms by liking and subscribing. Please return for the next episode when Dallas Dupree Young boards the mothership to discuss Cobra Kai on Netflix. Till next voyage, travel on.